A distress call placed from a boat near the western tip of Horn Island has entered wide public circulation and raised the intensity of an already closely watched investigation.
Tito assistant. Tito assistant.
In the background of that recording, listeners report hearing raised voices, a clear expression of alarm from a female passenger, and a name directed at one of the young men present. The call was made while the vessel was experiencing mechanical difficulty. The young man, whose name appears in many online interpretations of the recording, is no longer alive. This is the account of that emergency recording. The individuals connected to it, the competing interpretations it has generated, and the larger questions it continues to raise about what occurred on and around Horn Island over the 4th of July weekend of 2026. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old. He was a student athlete from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, known in his community as a young man with athletic promise and a wide circle of acquaintances. Over the holiday weekend, he joined a group for a boat trip to Horn Island, a barrier island lying off the Mississippi Gulf Coast and reachable only by water. The island is a place of open beaches, limited infrastructure, and seasonal crowds drawn by the combination of isolation and accessibility. According to official statements, Nolan was last seen on the northwest portion of the island on Saturday. Sometime later, a boat associated with the group reported that its bilge pump had stopped working. A call for assistance was placed to a towing service. Nolan's body was recovered 2 days later, on Monday morning, in the same general sector of the island where he had last been seen. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has described the investigation as active and ongoing. An independent autopsy commissioned by the family returned a preliminary finding of undetermined cause and manner of death. No one has been charged with any crime in connection with his death. If you want to follow every verified development in the Nolan Wells investigation as it unfolds, including new evidence releases, official statements, and independent analysis, consider subscribing now. This channel is dedicated to careful, ongoing coverage of cases that demand patience and precision. New updates are published as soon as reliable information becomes available, so you never have to search for the next chapter. The recording now under intense public examination is the distress call made from one of the boats that day. Authorities with the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources have released the audio in its official form. The primary speaker identifies the location as the west tip of Horn Island. He reports that the bilge pump, referred to in the call as the village pump, has stopped working. He states that the boat is taking on water and that the situation is becoming serious. He requests immediate help and notes that the group holds a membership with the towing service. Public reporting has identified the speaker as Wyatt Pyron, the individual operating the boat at the time of the call. What has drawn the greatest sustained attention is not the primary conversation itself, but the activity audible in the background while that conversation takes place. Multiple independent reviews of the recording describe a female voice clearly exclaiming, "Oh my God." Other listeners report hearing a male voice using strong language that some interpret as an instruction to wake up or to be quiet. That is followed by the phrase, "Damn it, Bart." Additional claims circulating online include the possible presence of the word dead and the name Nolan. These latter interpretations remain contested. Some reviewers argue that the sounds are indistinct, that they are the product of audio enhancement and repeated listening, or that they have been shaped by expectation. In this account, we focus primarily on the portions that appear most consistently reported across different analyses: the female expression of alarm and the clear invocation of the name Bart. According to an interview given by Warren Hudson, who has publicly described himself as Nolan's closest friend and who was identified in the earliest reporting on the case, The call occurred as the group was receiving assistance arranged through their acquaintance Bart Edmonston. In that account, the phrase directed at Bart is understood as frustration aimed at Edmiston during the mechanical emergency. Bart Edmonston Jr. is 21 years old. He is a former student of Ocean Springs High School and a current collegiate athlete at the University of Wyoming, where he serves as the starting punter. Public records and local media coverage confirm that he and Nolan Wells were teammates on the Ocean Springs High School football team in 2022. Photographs from that period show the two young men together in team and community settings, including moments in which they spoke with elementary students on school visits. Those images, once ordinary records of a shared high school season, now carry a different weight for many who view them. Edmiston later continued his football career after leaving Ocean Springs. He earned recognition as one of Mississippi's stronger high school punters. He collected awards at the junior college level. As recently as the previous October, he appeared on the Ray Guy Award watch list as one of the top 8 punters in the country, posting an average of 45.3 yards per punt. In 2022, he was named Athlete of the Week by a local Gulf Coast news outlet. In a recorded interview from that time, he spoke about his father, also named Bart, who had kicked at the University of Florida in the mid-1990s, and about the family tradition of kicking and punting that he and his younger brother shared. He described the practical demands of being the only kicker on a high school roster and the later arrival of his younger brother as both helper and successor. Cases like this one evolve in stages, often with critical details emerging weeks or months later. If you want a single place that continues to track the investigation with the same careful approach you are seeing now, separating confirmed facts from online claims and returning whenever new verified material appears, subscribe so the next update reaches you directly. Consistent coverage of complex, unresolved cases is the reason this channel exists. Reporting indicates that Edmiston has spoken with investigators. His boat's GPS data has been examined. He provided a driver's license and boat registration information to authorities. These steps are consistent with standard investigative practice when individuals are connected to the timeline and location of an incident under review. No charges have been filed against him or against any other person. The appearance of his name in the background of the distress call has nevertheless placed him at the center of online discussion. Some observers note that his presence on or near the boats during the emergency was not widely emphasized in early public statements about the case. Others point to the tone of the raised voices and the proximity of the call to the area where Nolan's body was later found. These observers argue that the combination of location, timing, and audible distress warrants closer examination. In their view, the sequence, an expression of alarm from a female passenger, followed by sharp commands and a name directed at Edmiston, fits a timeline in which something more serious than mechanical failure may have been unfolding on or near the boat. They ask how an athletic 18-year-old could vanish among a crowd of hundreds of people on a relatively confined island and then be recovered in the same sector without any immediate witnesses coming forward when he was first reported missing. Alternative interpretations exist and have been advanced with equal force. Some listeners maintain that the background sounds reflect only the stress of a vessel taking on water in an area with limited immediate help. A female passenger reacting with alarm to the realization that the boat is in difficulty, followed by sharp commands directed at a fellow passenger attempting to manage the situation, is, in this reading, consistent with a mechanical emergency rather than evidence of harm to any individual. The phrase, "Damn it, Bart," is understood by these reviewers as ordinary frustration aimed at the person who had arranged or was assisting with the tow. Questions have also been raised about the practical details of the boat's condition. Some observers note the reported presence of 7 people on a vessel that was said to be taking on water, the relatively short distance the boat ultimately traveled while still near the western tip, and the calm sea conditions described in certain accounts. They ask how a boat that was operational when loaded could end up in that state so quickly. These questions do not, by themselves, establish wrongdoing. They do, however, form part of the public conversation that continues to surround the recording. The investigation remains under the jurisdiction of local authorities, with reported assistance from federal resources. Officials have continued to request photographs, videos, and first-hand accounts from anyone present on Horn Island on July 4th. The family of Nolan Wells, represented by attorney Ben Crump and local counsel, has pressed for complete transparency and has commissioned independent analysis of physical and digital evidence. Notices requiring the preservation of records have already been issued to certain individuals connected to the events of that weekend. Those notices instruct recipients to retain all potentially relevant material, documents, electronic records, text messages, photographs, videos, in its original form, and to suspend any automatic deletion or overwrite functions. Public commentary has grown more pointed as the audio has spread. Former Mississippi Judge Carlos Moore has stated on social media that arrests should be expected in the near term. Online creators and viewers have offered competing reconstructions of the timeline. Some assert that the recording captures the final moments of Nolan Wells' life and that specific actions occurred on the boat. Others insist that it captures only the chaos of a vessel in difficulty. Claims that internal structures or organs were missing from autopsy findings have circulated without confirmation from the independent examiners or official pathologists. Such assertions remain unverified and are treated by investigators as speculation, pending the completion of all forensic work. The speed with which these claims move across platforms has itself become part of the story. What begins as a careful review of an official recording can, within hours, become layered with enhancements, selective transcripts, and definitive conclusions that outpace the official process. One recurring theme in the online discussion is the perceived gap between the speed of digital analysis and the measured pace of official disclosure. Early statements from the sheriff's office indicated that foul play was not suspected. Subsequent developments, the independent autopsy's undetermined finding, the release of the distress call audio, the preservation notices, and the continued examination of digital and physical evidence have kept the matter open. Commentators have asked why certain details, including the presence of particular individuals and the full content of the background audio, appeared to surface first through public channels rather than through formal briefings. The question is not whether investigators possess the technical capacity to clarify ambiguous sounds. Most observers acknowledge that they do. Modern forensic audio tools, cellular location data, and GPS reconstruction are capable of resolving many uncertainties that remain opaque to casual listeners. The question is when and how those clarifications will be presented to the public, and whether the eventual findings will align with any of the competing narratives now circulating. Several factual elements are not in dispute. Nolan Wells was present on Horn Island with a group that included Wyatt Pyron and, according to multiple accounts, Bart Edmonston. A boat experienced bilge pump failure near the western tip of the island. A distress call was placed. Background voices on that call include at least one clear expression of alarm from a female passenger and a reference to Bart. Nolan's body was later recovered in the same general sector of the island. The official cause and manner of death have not been finally determined. No one has been charged. What remains unresolved is the precise sequence of events between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the discovery of his body. What remains unresolved is the full content and context of every communication that occurred on the boats. What remains unresolved is the complete set of movements recorded by any available GPS or cellular data. What remains unresolved is the full set of interactions among the individuals present. What remains unresolved is the reason no witnesses came forward immediately when an athletic young man was reported missing in an area that, by many accounts, held a substantial number of people that day. Investigators possess tools capable of clarifying portions of the audio that remain ambiguous to casual listeners. Whether those tools will produce a consensus interpretation and whether that interpretation will alter the current investigative posture is not yet known. The release of the call has intensified scrutiny of every individual who was present that day. It has also illustrated the speed with which digital recordings can move from official custody into public analysis. Enhanced versions, selective transcripts, and layered commentary now shape much of the online conversation. Responsible examination requires distinguishing carefully between the original recording as released by authorities and the interpretations that subsequent processing and repeated listening have produced. It also requires recognizing that public pressure, while capable of accelerating attention, does not itself constitute evidence. Evidence remains the domain of physical findings, digital records, witness statements under controlled conditions, and forensic analysis. As the investigation continues, the family of Nolan Wells maintains its request for a thorough and transparent process. Community members and online observers continue to debate the meaning of the audible fragments. Authorities continue to gather and evaluate evidence. The distress call itself stands as a fixed piece of the timeline, a moment of mechanical failure, raised voices, and a request for help issued from the same stretch of water where an 18-year-old's body would later be found. Whether that recording ultimately illuminates the circumstances of Nolan Wells' death, or simply documents the stress of a boat in difficulty, will be determined by the completion of the forensic, digital, and witness work still underway. Until that work concludes, the audio remains both a piece of evidence and a source of unresolved questions. The case continues to test the balance between the public's desire for rapid answers and the deliberate pace required for a reliable investigation. It continues to test the capacity of institutions to communicate clearly while protecting the integrity of their process. And it continues to test the ability of observers to separate what is known from what is inferred. The case of Nolan Xavier Wells is not closed. The recording has been heard. The interpretations continue. The questions about location, timing, presence, and silence remain open, and the demand for a complete accounting of what occurred on Horn Island remains active. If you have information relevant to the events of July 4th on or near Horn Island, authorities continue to solicit public tips. Share reasoned perspectives in the comments. Subscribe for updates as official findings and additional verified material become available. The search for clarity in this matter is ongoing.